now move to our next session, which is, I believe, a very interesting one, not one that you see often, which is white spaces when India can win. And if I can now introduce the chair of this panel, Ms. Paroma Chowdhury, who's Senior Vice President, Corporate Communications and Public Affairs at BYJU. While Ms. Chowdhury is coming up, let me also take the opportunity to thank our inclusion partner, VShesh, for their support, and our mentoring and motion partner, Plug and Cars on Rent, for their support as well. Over to you. Joining Ms. Chowdhury on the panel are Mr. Sriram Natarajan, Director of Molbio Diagnostic, Dr. Ajai Chowdhury, Padma Bhushan winner, founder and former chairman of HCL Infosystems, and who's also just released a book which I think all of you should take a look at, called Just Aspire, and also runs his foundation called the Epic Foundation. We also have Dr. Bibek, Banerjee, who's Dean, School of Management and Entrepreneurship at Shiv, Nadar University, joining Ms. Chowdhury on this panel.
Hi everyone. If we can just ask people to settle down a little bit and we can start then. We are actually at a very opportune moment in history to have this discussion. India is looking towards a future full of optimism, self-reliance and sustained economic growth. And white spaces, by white spaces we mean areas where Indian businesses can build scale and efficiency and solve significant problems through innovation and expansion. To do that with me, we have a very, very stellar panel. First, there's Ajai Chowdhury, who needs no introduction actually. He's one of the 6 core founders of HCL and former chairman of HCL Infosystems. And he wears Padma Bhushan as one of the feathers in his cap, and he also now leads, he has a foundation called Epic Foundation, which is a platform for industry-led innovation, and as you heard, he just now published a book called Just Aspire. So that is Ajay. Dr. Sriram Natarajan, who has the unique distinction of pioneering the sole unicorn out of Goa. His Molbio Diagnostics provides precise, rapid, cost-efficient molecular diagnostics so that at point of care, patients can access absolutely top-notch care at a relatively cost-effective fashion. And Bibek Banerjee is the Senior Dean of Shiv Nadar University at the School of Management and Entrepreneurship, and he also leads strategic initiatives for the university. And in his previous life, he was a faculty at IIM Ahmedabad for 10 years, and also led the Duke University IIMA partnership, and he was also Director General at IIMT Ghaziabad. So as you can see, we have a really stellar panel, and we have a stimulating discussion. I'll start with you, Ajay. Obviously, by white spaces, we are talking about significant opportunities first, where India can build scale and efficiency and innovation. So you are often known as the father of hardware in India. I deliberately did not put that in the intro so that I can ask you this question. So what kind of opportunities we are talking about?
Well, basically, for last so many years, I've been pretty much wanting the country to do something different in hardware, but it's just started to happen in the last 4 to 5 years. Many years ago, I had predicted that the electronics import bill will be higher than the oil bill, and it's turned out to be true. So if we look at the large opportunity size that is staring at the country today, It's quite amazing. Till yesterday, if anybody wanted to create a product, electronic product, anywhere in the world, they said, let's not do it ourselves, let's go to China. Let's go to a design house there. They will design it for me. And then I'll get it manufactured there. I'll bring it back and I will label it and sell it. Now the last few years, due to zero COVID policy of China, the geopolitical situation, the trust deficit, India today has an opportunity to be a hardware product nation. If you look at 8-10 years ago in software, we were fundamentally a services country. And then suddenly over the last 10 years, you've seen this phenomenal growth of Indian hard software products. And today we have $1 billion company called Zoho. So things like this have changed the whole scenario. And I think that is what I believe is the opportunity for startups and organizations to look at hardware very deeply. Because we should now go and take that opportunity to be the alternative to China in terms of an India hardware product nation. And that is where the real skills and capability of India will come into play, which is 10 years ago, there was a concept called China Plus One, and people moved from China to Vietnam to manufacture electronic products. But then Vietnam seized that opportunity, India didn't. However, the big benefit that we have today is that we know design and engineering. Add that to manufacturing, which is happening in a big way in India, and we can clearly have a terrific situation in the market, which is a huge white space. We are talking of tens of billions of dollars over the next 10 years. So I think it's such a large space that startups and organizations should deeply look at creating products out of India, creating design centers here, and then designing for the world. And this is something that all the global companies are coming and doing here. They set up R&D centers. India exports $38 billion of R&D today. So look at that knowledge that we have gained in the last 10-15 years. With that knowledge, I think we can definitely exploit this huge white space.
Fantastic. Sriram, you are also at a very interesting point in your particular history. Delivering medicine, better medicine, in a more cost-effective, precise and rapid manner, using molecular diagnostics. This is so interesting. And healthcare is literally exploding in India as a sector in terms of investments, in terms of products and services offered, but more services offered. So what would be your perspective in terms of opportunity?
I think the story is the same as the hardware, right? Huge potential and a lot of activity happening now. In the healthcare side, I would say we can clearly demarcate between pre-COVID times and post-COVID times. Right? Pre-COVID times, medical devices, India was importing almost 85%, right? And only about 10 to 15% was locally made. And with COVID, suddenly there was a huge demand, and so many new people came into the picture, so many innovations happened, and completely transformed this sector, right? And so today, it's come down to about probably almost 50% imports and 50% domestic. And the enthusiasm that I see now and the kind of opportunities people are seeing, it's outstanding. It never happened before. And so many startups are coming up, doing different kinds of things, new technologies. Artificial intelligence, for example, has become some kind of an Indian fort now. Everybody, Indians are as it is good in software and in mathematics and so on, and so they're probably excelling much better. I see the sector growing tremendously already. And as far as the market is concerned, of course, India itself is a big market. The boom that you're seeing right now is only about 20% of the population, really speaking. Even today, 80% of the population, they don't have access to good quality healthcare. So there is a lot of activity going on in trying to see how we can reach that kind of people. Not necessarily only by brick and mortar kind of building hospitals and building laboratories, but also using mobile solutions, using technology, trying to use telemedicine, which has been talked about for the last 2 decades. Nothing happened. But today, it's changing. I mean, everybody is talking telemedicine. We have a national digital health mission set up for this, where the government wants to have electronic medical records, as a database for every citizen of India. And that would probably, and they're looking at it as some kind of an UPI, so that all service providers can tag onto it and give their own services, just like the UPI system. So a lot of things are happening. The government is thinking big. The government is doing a lot of their own initiatives. The market is opening up because, number one, the public sector is spending more money in the healthcare. The private sector itself is growing, and as you said, the overall health-seeking behavior is changing. People are concerned now. Earlier, people would normally not bother too much about small things, but today, anything small happens, everybody is worried, and so, the health-seeking behavior is changing. And also, the lot of, when you talk about infectious diseases, there's a lot of elimination targets being set now, globally also and India also. So, for example, now there's a big target for TB, tuberculosis elimination. Our company is playing a major role in that. So it means that you need to screen, probably a huge population to be able to say that you're free of TB. And so that's a big opportunity already. Talking about cervical cancer elimination, for example. Talking about hepatitis elimination. So many targets are getting set, and these are all global targets, and India is also part of it. So the Indian population itself is huge to take care of, a lot of innovations and a lot of new companies to come in. But the global markets are also there. I mean, we can, in fact, we're already starting to see India is exporting medical devices now. It never happened before. It was importing earlier, now it's the other way around. So I think the global opportunity is also very huge. So I think we're sitting in an excellent position from medical sector point of view. And if we get our ecosystem correct and if we get our act together, India can be a very dominant player, not only for India, but at the global scale.
Bibek, this morning I was talking to a very young entrepreneur, and he said that education is hot. So plenty of people in this room will probably also agree in terms of activity and interest. Education is hot. We have seen a boom in private universities over the last 10 years, and many global universities are looking to set up campuses, satellite campuses here. There's a lot more public-private partnership which is going on in terms of syllabus and in general academic excellence. Also, I see, which is very pertaining to your own area, a lot of industry education or industry academia partnerships, which I think is very critical for going forward. So with this point of view, what do you think opportunities in education are what is looking like?
Okay, thank you for having me on this panel. I'm delighted to be here and honored to be in the same panel. I think education has always been hot, Paroma. It is in flames right now. And if you allow me to go back a little bit by way of the evolution of this country, today of course we are talking sectorally in manufacturing, in healthcare, etc. But I think it goes without saying that if you take the resource-based view on development, you at the most simplistic level, you have three broad resources. You have the natural resources, you have the financial resources, and you have the human resources, which in today's language is better to talk about talent resources, right? So if you look at the evolution of our nation since independence, and I would say for the first set of decades, we pretty much kind of vacated the space of higher education, largely to our more developed, what is called the developed world, and kind of concentrated on the space of primary and secondary education. Of course, we had a reason. We had, we were left with an impoverished country once our colonizers left, and and therefore, during this phase, if we'll all remember, at least those who are old enough, one of the hot topics that you talk about would be the brain drain, right? So we would have a handful of excellent institutions, which probably, which had the privilege of getting some of the sharpest minds in the world trained and largely, go out of the country. Higher education was also a means to basically immigrate, and because people saw the pastures greener on the other side. So the heat was always there, Paroma, the way, and I think what is terrifically exciting right now is that people are beginning to see that India has the potential to be a flame and you're absolutely, completely agree with you, that, we traditionally, industry had looked at universities as places for hunting for talent, really, and the space was more like a teaching development kind of a space, right? But today, if you look at it, at Shiv University, the things that we are all trying to achieve, that a university is an ecosystem where industry, entrepreneurs, science, technology, and of course the human sciences can all come together to really solve tomorrow's problem. So the fact that university is a space which is, yes, there is a teaching, there will always be teaching programs which are converting raw talent into a more sophisticated or finished talent. But university could be your laboratory to actually solve for a lot of problems or opportunities that entrepreneurs in the industry probably, one, they do not have the bandwidth, or two, they don't have the time or the energy to sort of solve for. So I think it is that, I believe, I'm here because I'm excited, I'm heated by that flame, to be honest with you, that, we have potential to create this ecosystem where entrepreneurs, the industry, deep sciences, and of course the teaching column come together to really take a stab at problems that is going to be, scalable, commercialable, translationable in the future. So I believe that it is, we are only at the beginning stage. I would of a movement where I don't want to get into whether a reverse brain drain is in order, but we all know that every year Indian parents spend billions of dollars sending their children abroad for education, which, to be honest with you, I think largely miss the opportunity of the world which is in India. So I'm terrifically excited to be working on a project where I think we have a potential to either reverse or retain the more exciting talent that are going to drive tomorrow's Fortune 20, Fortune 50 companies. So sorry, that was at a global level, but I hope, and yes, it's white spaces is all that I see when it comes to the opportunity that higher education, ones with the right vision, have to be able to create the ecosystem with the right partners to take India to a different level, and of course all the citizens around and in it to a different level. I totally believe that it's going to be the next couple of decades would be ours.
That's wonderful to hear. But I started my life by being a journalist, and then you are always taught to look at glasses as half empty, and you look at risks, and you also look at downsides. You're trained to do that. So let me take a step back and ask you that what you see as inherent risks in your respective areas. I can just tell you, Ajay, that many people might say that this hardware boom, so to speak, is because we are at an interesting inflection point geopolitically, where people are sort of being forced to look at alternatives other than China. And that's why the attention is coming to India, not because of our inherent capabilities. I'm just taking a step back and asking you that. So do you think, is that true to an extent? And other than that, also to build consistently on the excellence, so that factors like geopolitics don't really matter in the long run. Do you think India can get there at some point? So two parts to it. Basically, Are there other factors influencing this, the boom, the hardware boom? And what can India do to build consistent excellence?
Very interesting question, because I think the first piece that I'd like to mention is that India is a huge market of its own. And that is really what differentiates from us from all the other markets where China's manufacturing has moved. And if you look at Vietnam, you look at Thailand, you look at Indonesia, those markets are not that large. Indonesia maybe to some extent, but Indonesia has not got that much in electronics. It's mainly Thailand, Malaysia, etc. And their domestic markets are not large enough. So India has one major benefit, that we can create products in India for India. And what is the difference that we can create here? I think one of the key things that we need to now look at is sustainability. And in sustainability, the biggest challenge in electronics that I see for the country is that there is so much of e-waste we are creating. And this e-waste, we are the third largest e-waste creating country in the world. Now, if we continue to think of products the way the Western countries think, they design their products thinking of a very different way. Okay, they design their products not to last. Right? So you buy an Apple or any other product, they sort of make sure that you're changing your product in a year and a half to 2 years. Now, that's not what is good for India, because that is going to create a huge problem of e-waste for us. So we need to relook at how products should be designed in India for India. And for that, interesting part is that the government has started a program called LIFE. And under that, the Consumer Affairs Ministry is now coming up with a strategy which will change all of this. And they are talking about right to repair. So, for example, if you had bought a product from Apple or a Samsung and you had to go back to Samsung or Apple to do repairs, it's very expensive. That's not the right model for India. So there are two pieces. One, we can't be buying and throwing. And two, we need the life of the product to be longer, so we want them to be repairable and upgradable. There lies the opportunity for Indian startups to create products of that kind. See, the innovation has to come from startups. And I see a whole bunch of new startups in hardware that are coming around now. And I've seen hundreds of them happening today. Till yesterday, I didn't see too many hardware startups. Today, I'm seeing many, many more. And I think if they start to look at the opportunity size here in terms of creating products for India, with India in mind, I think it will be a terrific opportunity. Now, everybody used to think that consumer products cannot be made in India and be made successful, and consumer companies in electronics is not going to be successful. Look at 25 years ago, there were a whole bunch of electronic companies, all consumer. Now, recently, in the last 5 years, companies like Boat, Noise, all these companies have emerged. They have created products in India to market in India and create a brand. And they've been extremely successful. So I think it all depends on how well you create your business plan, how do you find your spot in the market, where do you think the opportunity lies, and you seize that opportunity to create a business. So I think that is where I see phenomenal opportunity, and the risk to it is going to be if you do not really plan your product correctly and you do not think of the areas that you should focus on, then you could go wrong.
Okay, yeah, that's excellent. So Sriram, using the same logic, do you think building for India is actually the solution? Because we are a large enough market, enough complexity, enough demand, or, is that the way you would like to go? Or you think that what is built in India, we had another session on that earlier in the day, is also building for the world? At some time, you would like to be regarded as a market or as a product or a service which can service the world, apart from building for India. So is that the way, or would you like to focus solely on addressing the vastness and complexity of Indian market, and because there's still a huge unexplored potential there. So again, two parts to the question.
Absolutely, and I think both parts go hand in hand probably. Building for India, sure. Just as I said before, India already has to, start making more than 50-60% more of medical devices which are currently being imported. And that itself is a big opportunity. And the Indian market, like I said, is huge. And the market size is so huge that it makes a lot of sense for us to focus on building in India. But yes, eventually the objective should be to build for the world, because medical devices, medical technology and IT, all of them are innate for Indians, and we have the ability to create, to innovate in this area. We should capitalize on that and take it to the world. The challenges are, of course, first of all, we still lack ecosystem to support this kind of an activity. So even today, I'm sure it's the same for electronics and the same for medical devices. The components still have to be imported, so we don't have component manufacturing. Whether it is the hardware components or even biological components that we use to build diagnostic tests, for example, most of them have to be imported because we don't have any ecosystem in India to make those. So to that extent, you still become import dependent. And there's so much of opportunity for getting into that area and trying to create those kind of components in India. It will take time, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but I think that effort should happen. But we don't see that focus either in the industry or from the government side or from the overall the stakeholders, right? So I think that's something we all should think very seriously about. Today the mentality is more to get into Me Too products because there's an opportunity, so you just get some components, assemble it and make a product, and so it becomes some kind of a Me Too, but Make in India kind of product. That's how people are trying to leverage the Make in India efforts. But I think unless we really seriously get into innovating, creating new technologies and new solutions, we will never be able to compete globally. We will be able to, yes, sell in India probably to some extent. We will still have a lot of, when you do a Me Too product, everybody can do it, right? So you will build a lot of competition, and typically that's what keeps on happening. But the moment you get into innovation and differentiating yourself, and that changes the game completely. And that's where you can actually go global. So I think we should focus on both, focus on creating the ecosystem. There is already a big disparity between the research side, which is mostly in government labs and government departments, and the industry. There's a huge mistrust between the two, and that has to change. So I think probably universities like Shiv University should focus on trying to get this industry and academia together and focus on solving these kind of issues. A lot of medtech parks are coming up all over the country. One such example is Andhra Pradesh Medtech Zone. They are now trying to create a lot of capacity to help industry by giving them some kind of backward integration in many areas. Such kind of activities has to be supported, and I think all the stakeholders have to get together to make it happen. Yes, it can happen, but we all have to work for it.
Bibek, I think you are at the most interesting juncture. Because, on one hand, obviously as a private university, you probably have a goal of getting ranked as the top 3 or top 4 in India itself, because there are vast unexplored markets there in regions. And also I think all universities, the good ones, public and private, are looking also at global rankings at some point. And we do fairly poorly there as Indian institutions. I'm not going to go into data, but most people who track universities will know none of our institutions figure in the top 200 of global rankings. So where is your sight trained? First grow in India and then grow globally? Do it simultaneously? Or is it only the global QT rankings that matter?
Okay, tricky question. I wasn't expecting anything softer from you anyway before. For those who have been reading the newspapers over the last 2-3 days, there are a lot being written on this ranking process, and we all know that it is, should I call it game, or it's a sport. It's a sport which has its own, tactics and strategies and so on. But the fact remains pretty much what Ajay and Sriram have been talking about. That we have about a sixth of the world's globe population living in India. Ajay talked about how big our domestic market, our solving India's problem itself is massive opportunity. Okay. Today we are also getting Natu to win Oscar, okay? Whereas, it is all linked to your ranking question. Until recently, our benchmark was Hollywood, right? And today we are beginning to ask the question. And by the way, Natu is not even a Bollywood movie, okay? So therein lies the answer that I think if there are large important problems for India, they are likely to be large important problems for humanity. And if universities and industry and entrepreneurs are coming together to solve for those problems with innovation and creativity, the rankings can wait, but it will happen. I believe my answer to your question is that we are not going to be chasing ranking immediately. It is important for us to do real work. I believe there's a bit of a commotion there at the back.
Can we just ask people to settle down a little bit? At the gate? I'm sorry, at the door? Please.
So I think the operative, fundamental characteristic is that we have to solve problems honestly. We have a tendency to have this checkbox kind of orientation to solving problems, right? So you want this done, and for this, here's the process, and here are the 70 checklists, and I gave the system to sort of check it off and get it. We will never be solving any problem by doing that, and I think progressive institutions would have to and will be focusing not on that sport of ranking or quality, and going to real solutions, authentic solutions that are actually making a difference on the ground. So we believe, and of course the big leveler is the market, right? Once you have a solution that is actually making a difference, the market is going to reward. Of course, education is I keep saying education is more like a infrastructure model, right? It is not a 5 or 10 year break-even or even a commercial break-even horizon at all. It's a long investment, and especially research, as most of you are talking about. Probably it takes decades for research to be commercialized and breaking even. So only some players would be able to hold the hand over the flame for that long, and we believe we will. But fundamentally, I think it is about the honesty and the quality with which you are taking a stab at these problems that every sector faces. And once we begin to get that, we believe quality never loses. It is really if you can hang on with the game of attrition, not to give up too early and get onto shortcuts. So I think a few institutions in India will begin to do that, and you're going to see the results very soon.
So what I'm hearing is basically India first, but definitely global later, and finally it takes a combination of both to succeed and succeed consistently. Guys, do we have time for 2 questions? 1, please.
But I have a point to add here.
Yeah, sure.
I think the benefit of Indian market is that you can scale. And with scale, you become competitive. And once you become competitive, you are competitive all over the world. And that has been proven in some of the things that the government recently did. Take the COVID situation. Government said, let's make vaccines. I'll give you the order, I will give you the advance, you make vaccines. All those vaccine companies created products through demand of India, where India actually put in money to get them to make. And and that make them globally competitive.
Absolutely. That's a classic case of India first, global later. And that's a wonderful thought to end on. So, one question, please. Yeah, there's a gentleman at the back. Can we get him a mic?
Hello, sir. I'm Ravi Agrawal. We have a profitable manufacturing startup in electronics industry. I have a question for all of you. That we are finding that from last 5 or 10 years, we have a very less patents compared to the US and Europe, especially from our R&D institutions and even our colleges also. So, do you have any take on that?
Sorry, what?
We have less patents.
Less patents. Ajay, would you like to take that? I mean, he's talking about patents, why we have less patents.
Patents and copyrights in an R&D space, especially in electronics and other industries.
Enough patents compared to other jobs.
Absolutely correct, but I've had some experience in mentoring something called an Electropreneur Park, which was located in Delhi. And there we brought in a whole bunch of hardware startups 6 years ago. In 6 years, they've created 52 products and 53 patents. So, you know, it's happening in India. And I think it's all an issue of providing the right ecosystem. And I think that is really where I believe design centers for electronics, etc. have to be located within good education and research institutions. And if that happens, I think then you will see success.
Maybe that's a task cut out for you, okay?
Surely,
So with that, this lady, and we'll end with her, okay?
Hi, my name is Shaurya. So I have been a startup founder and I've also briefly worked with the VC. So I've been fairly involved with the startup ecosystem for the past 4 to 5 years. My question is that as I have myself worked and I interact with a lot of entrepreneurs, I see a wide gap that exists in the Indian startup ecosystem. We have a lot of opportunities, a lot of networking happening in the metros, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, but there's a wide gap when you go to the tier 2, tier 3. And the reality is that 70-80% of the consumers still reside there. So what is your suggestion? What are your takes in terms of how can we bridge that gap and make the resources and the impact of the ecosystems that we want to create? How can we create that better? Make it more inclusive.
There are, in our industry associations like NASCOM or even TiE, are associated with a lot of incubators in tier 3, tier 2, even tier 4 cities. So, the incubator platform really needs to grow and expand. And people like you also have a duty in that. So if you are a founder who have scaled to such an extent and you have the opportunity to network in your city, please do so and build more platforms like that. If any of you would like to add.
I can add from my side. As a university, we believe in all of our undergraduate as well as graduate education. Almost 40 to 50% of our curriculum is on actually doing rather than going to a classroom and learning. So we are always in lookout for challenging projects, and we send our students out to. In fact, we have a social sector internship, for example. They spend 2 months in this, in deep rural. So I would think that you put on your thinking hats a bit more. Probably there are progressive institutions who could actually offer you very talented resources to solve for the problems that, or at least start solving for some of those problems. So we are actually looking out for problems that you don't have bandwidth to solve, and our students could actually learn from, and exactly focused on that India that you're talking about, 70% non-metro. So I would say there are solutions available. Expand your horizon.
And we are absolutely out of time. So a big thank you to our esteemed panelists and the audience. I hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you so much to our panelists and Ms. Chowdhury for so adeptly managing that conversation. Lots of great points, lots of great takeaways. We have a few small tokens of appreciation from our end, from TiE, for all the panelists. They've